bass necks can get confusing fast because people throw around terms like bolt-on, short scale, C-shape, and fan fret like they all mean the same thing, but they actually belong to 4 completely different categories: neck construction, scale length, fingerboard type, and neck profile. So today we're breaking down every major bass neck type by the category it actually belongs to. Let's start with category 1, the neck construction. Bolt-on neck. The bolt-on neck became one of the most important engineering decisions in bass history the moment Leo Fender introduced the precision bass in 1951. Before that, most string instruments relied on glued neck construction, which made repairs difficult and manufacturing slower. Fender took a different approach. Instead of permanently attaching the neck, he used screws and a metal neck plate to fasten it directly onto the body. That simple idea changed how basses were built. Bodies and necks could now be produced separately, assembled faster, repaired more easily, and even replaced when necessary. Suddenly, fixing a damaged neck no longer felt like a woodworking emergency.
This is gonna come off. Now you'll see.
The design also shaped the sound, because the neck and body are mechanically connected rather than glued together. Bolt-on basses typically produce a tighter attack and stronger note definition. If a bass line needed to cut through a busy mix, a bolt-on bass was rarely shy about making itself heard. Set neck. During the 1950s and 60s, design split into 2 philosophies. Fender became known for bolt-on necks. Gibson became known for set neck construction. Unlike a bolt-on design, a set neck is permanently glued into the body using a carved joint, often a dovetail. This creates a stronger connection between the neck and body, allowing vibrations to transfer more smoothly through the instrument. The approach wasn't new. Glued neck joints had already been used for centuries on instruments like violins and cellos, but Gibson helped make the design a defining part of electric bass history. Compared to bolt-on basses, set neck designs typically produce a warmer, fuller, and more rounded response. Notes bloom gradually rather than snapping aggressively at the front. The downside is permanence. If the neck becomes damaged, repairs are far more difficult. But for many bassists, the added sustain and smooth resonance make that trade-off worthwhile. Neck through neck. Most bass necks are attached to the body. Neck through basses are built around it. The idea dates back further than many people realize. One of the earliest known examples appeared around 1937 in Paul Tutmark's Audiovox 736, often considered the first solid body electric bass. A few years later, Les Paul experimented with similar ideas while building the Log in 1941, using a central wood core that ran through the instrument. The concept gained momentum during the 1950s and 60s, when companies like Rickenbacker refined the modern neck-through approach. Unlike bolt-on or set neck construction, neck-through basses use one continuous piece of wood running through the center of the body, with body wings attached to the sides. This creates exceptional sustain, greater stability, and smoother upper fret access. Because the strings vibrate through a continuous wood core, neck-through basses are widely known for their long sustain and strong resonance. Those qualities helped establish neck-through basses as one of the most respected high-performance designs in bass history. One-piece neck. Every time a bassist flips over a vintage precision bass and spots a skunk stripe, they are looking at the legacy of one-piece neck construction. The neck and playing surface were made from a single block of maple rather than separate pieces of wood. The approach was simple, durable, and efficient for early mass production. But the design also created a problem. Because there was no separate fingerboard, Fender could not install the truss rod from the front. His solution produced one of the most recognizable details in bass history. A channel was routed through the back of the neck, the truss rod was inserted, and the slot was sealed with a walnut strip now known as the skunk stripe. One-piece maple necks produce a bright attack, quick response, and punchy articulation. Those qualities helped shape the crisp Fender bass tones heard throughout early rock and Motown recordings. However, the entire structure relies on a single piece of wood, making it more vulnerable to humidity and temperature changes than many modern laminated designs. Now let's move on to scale length. Short scale neck. Most modern basses use a 34-inch scale length, meaning the distance between the nut and bridge measures 34 inches. Not every bassist wanted to wrestle with a 34-inch instrument. By the mid-1960s, manufacturers realized that many players needed something more compact, especially students and musicians with smaller hands. Fender answered with the Mustang bass in 1966, the final bass design Leo Fender personally introduced. Its 30-inch scale length shortened the distance between frets, reducing the reach required across the fingerboard. The result was a bass that felt more approachable and easier to navigate. Fast position shifts required less effort, and stretches that might challenge some players on a long-scale instrument became far more comfortable. Short-scale basses developed a reputation for a warm, rounded voice and a relaxed playing feel. One of the most famous examples is Paul McCartney's Hofner violin bass, an instrument that helped introduce the sound of short-scale basses to millions of listeners around the world. Decades later, short-scale basses remain popular among players who value comfort, portability, and effortless playability. Medium-scale neck. Medium-scale basses occupy one of the most overlooked positions in bass design. Sitting at roughly 32 inches, they fall directly between the compact feel of a short-scale bass and the reach of a long-scale instrument. For decades, many players viewed them as a compromise, yet others saw them as the best of both worlds. The shorter reach makes movement around the neck easier than a traditional long-scale bass, while the added length preserves much of the firmness and definition players expect from larger instruments. Because of this balance, medium-scale basses have attracted everyone from experienced professionals to guitarists making the transition to bass. The playing experience often feels familiar without sacrificing too much range or control. Rather than dominating the market, medium-scale basses quietly developed a loyal following. They may not receive the same attention as their shorter or longer counterparts, but for many musicians, they occupy the sweet spot between comfort and performance. Long-scale neck. If one measurement defines the modern electric bass, it is 34 inches. That standard traces back to 1951 when Leo Fender introduced the precision bass. While several theories attempt to explain why he chose that specific number, the exact reasoning remains uncertain. What is certain is the impact it had on the industry. The 34-inch scale offered a practical balance between comfort, tone, and playability. It was short enough to be played horizontally, unlike an upright bass, yet long enough to preserve the authority and definition players expected from low frequencies. As the precision bass spread across stages and recording studios, manufacturers largely followed Fender's blueprint. Before long, 34 inches had become the benchmark against which nearly every other bass would be measured. Today, long-scale basses remain the industry standard. For countless players, they represent the reference point for what an electric bass should feel like. Extra long scale neck. As bassists began demanding lower tunings and extended range instruments, traditional scale lengths started approaching their limits. Builders responded by pushing beyond the 34-inch standard. Extra long scale basses typically measure between 35 and 37 inches, creating a larger playing platform designed for greater control and consistency. The concept likely emerged during the custom building movement of the 1970s, but it gained far more attention during the 1980s as 5- and 6-string basses became increasingly common. The added length helps maintain firmness and clarity across the instrument, particularly in the lower register where shorter scales can sometimes feel less controlled. For that reason, extra long scale basses found a natural home among players using extended range instruments or exploring lower tunings. While they remain a specialized category, they continue to appeal to musicians who prioritize precision, definition, and maximum performance across the entire neck. Multi-scale fan fret neck. At first glance, a multi-scale bass looks like someone installed the frets crooked. In reality, every angle serves a purpose. Instead of giving every note the same scale length, a multi-scale design assigns different lengths across the fingerboard. Lower notes receive a longer scale, while higher notes use a shorter one. The result is the distinctive fan-shaped fret pattern that gives the design its name. The concept emerged from a single question: why should every note be forced to operate under the same measurements when different pitches have different physical requirements? By tailoring the scale length to each part of the instrument, builders created a system that improves balance, consistency, and playing comfort across the neck. Although the appearance can seem intimidating at first, many players quickly adapt to the layout. Today, fan fret basses are widely regarded as one of the most innovative developments in modern instrument design. Next is fingerboard type, fretted neck. If there's one one neck style that defines the modern bass, it is the fretted neck. Although fretted instruments existed long before electric basses, the design became the industry standard because it solved one of the biggest challenges in music: playing accurately in tune. Thin metal frets are installed at precise intervals along the fingerboard, creating fixed reference points for every note. The advantage is consistency. Instead of relying entirely on ear training, players can place their fingers behind a fret and confidently produce the correct pitch. This made the bass far more accessible to beginners while also allowing experienced musicians to play complex passages with speed and precision. The frets also influence the instrument's response. When a string contacts a metal fret, the note gains a sharper attack and stronger articulation. Today, fretted basses dominate nearly every genre because they combine accuracy, reliability, and ease of play in a remarkably efficient design. Fretless neck. Remove the frets and the bass becomes a completely different instrument. While fretless basses have existed for decades, they gained widespread attention during the 1960s and 70s as players searched for a more expressive alternative to traditional fretted designs. Without metal frets dividing the fingerboard, the player controls pitch entirely through finger placement. The extra responsibility unlocks possibilities unavailable on a fretted bass. Notes can slide seamlessly into one another, subtle pitch variations become possible, and melodies take on a smooth vocal-like quality, instead of moving from note to note in clearly defined steps. A fret bass allows players to travel continuously across the fingerboard. The trade-off is precision. Every note demands careful intonation, and even small positioning errors can be heard immediately. For players willing to master the challenge, fretless basses offer a level of expression that few other instruments can match, which explains their enduring appeal among melodic and improvisational musicians. And finally, its neck profile and shape. C-shaped neck. The C-shaped neck is the profile most bassists have played, even if they never knew its name. Its origins trace back to the 1950s and 60s when manufacturers, particularly Fender, searched for a shape that felt comfortable in a wide range of hands. Viewed from the end, the back of the neck forms a gentle curve resembling the letter C. That rounded shape spreads pressure evenly across the palm, making it comfortable during long playing sessions. Unlike more specialized profiles, the C shape does not strongly favor any particular technique. It works equally well for players who wrap their thumb around the neck or keep it positioned behind the fingerboard. That versatility helped make it one of the most widely adopted neck profiles in bass history. For many players, it represents the benchmark against which every other neck shape is judged. U-shaped neck. The U-shaped neck is often described as the heavyweight of bass neck profiles. With its deep curve and pronounced shoulders, it fills the hand more aggressively than a typical C shape. The profile gained recognition during the early years of the Fender precision bass, where larger neck dimensions were common. Many vintage instruments from the 1950s featured substantial U-shaped necks that reflected the design preferences of the era. The added thickness provides a secure grip and strong sense of stability. Players with larger hands often appreciate the extra surface area, while others enjoy the feeling of having more neck to hold on to. Because of its size, the U-shape is not always the fastest feeling profile, but comfort is highly subjective. For some bassists, the substantial grip remains one of the most satisfying neck shapes ever produced. D-shaped neck. The D-shaped neck takes a different approach to comfort. Instead of a deep rounded curve, the back profile is slightly flatter, creating a shape that resembles the letter D. This design places less bulk in the palm while providing a broad surface for the thumb. As a result, many players find it easier to move quickly across the fingerboard and reach higher positions without changing their hand posture dramatically. The profile became increasingly popular as bass playing evolved toward faster and more technical styles. Its flatter back often appeals to musicians who keep their thumb centered behind the neck, rather than wrapped around it. Although it can feel unusual to players accustomed to rounder profiles, the D shape offers a blend of support and mobility and has earned it a loyal following among modern bassists. V-shaped neck. The V-shaped neck is one of the most distinctive profiles ever used on a bass. Rather than a rounded back, the neck forms a subtle ridge running down the center, creating a shape that resembles the letter V. Historically, V-shaped necks appeared on various vintage instruments before evolving into both soft soft V and hard V variations. The soft version rounds the ridge for greater comfort, while the hard version makes the profile more pronounced. Many players naturally position their thumb along the center ridge, creating a reference point that can make the neck feel surprisingly secure. Others find the shape less comfortable than a traditional C profile. Because of its unique feel, the V shape remains a matter of personal preference. Some bassists love the extra hand support, while others immediately know it's not for them. Asymmetrical neck. Most bass necks are symmetrical. An asymmetrical neck intentionally breaks that rule. Instead of maintaining equal thickness across both sides, the profile is shaped differently from bass side to treble side. In most cases, the neck is slightly thicker beneath the palm and thinner beneath the fingers. The concept emerged during the 1980s and early 1990s as manufacturers began using CNC technology to analyze and recreate the necks favored by professional musicians. During that process, builders discovered that many heavily played instruments were not perfectly symmetrical at all. Rather than correcting the irregularity, some companies embraced it. The result is a profile that follows the natural shape of the hand more closely. The difference is often subtle, but many bassists report improved comfort and reduced fatigue during extended playing sessions.